Okay. Yeah, thank you both. Thank you everyone for coming. My name is Nick. I'm going to talk about the decentralized autonomous Kunstverein. And this, maybe right from the beginning, is maybe more of a naive approach to using technology, but that means there's also maybe a little bit more hope, I hope. And I'm going to do it a bit more didactically because it's all still very abstract. It's much closer to just being an idea and being in the infrastructure phase than to being in the phase of doing exhibitions. So, but I'm going to start with like a brief introduction into my visual work and my general background as an artist. Then I'm going to talk about what the goal of the DAK is, and then what the DAK is, to then talk a bit about decision-making as a DAO, and then I'm finally going to ask you to get involved. So I'm interested in abstract systems, and that is really something that kind of unites many of the projects I do or I am involved in. And I'm interested in them on a visual and aesthetic level, but also on a semantic and structural level. So this is part of a series I did last year, a series of drawings. And I'm just going to read you the title, Wildflowers on German Meadows, The Price of Gold, Oyster Production in China, 1961 to 2016. And yeah, I combine 3 graphs here to create a new meaning. And I think there is something happening here just visually on the piece of paper, but also semantically by combining them. All these drawings are gouache on stone paper drawings, and I make them with a CNC machine where I attach a brush to. So I'm going to go a bit quicker through the other ones. This is part of a diptych. It's technology adoption 1905 to 1960. And this is the other piece. So this is like the other part of the diptych. And what you can already see, this is 1961 to 2016. And what you can see is that it is increasing. So again, we have like a visual component here. In a way, it's just a drawing, but there's also like, it's actually something that says about the world. So in the last 50 years or so, you can really see the impact of globalization and the internet and how software is distributed, because the adoption curves are getting steeper and steeper. Now, a related series that also works with line diagrams are these. These are appropriated images, or this one is an appropriated image. It is from an official document by the IFO Institute in Germany. That's a German economic research institute. And this is the actual state of the German economy. So I only basically removed the numbers, but this is the diagram. And to me, it's quite interesting how economic systems and economic states create such weird or almost ridiculous drawings. So this is the stock market crash of the Snapchat stock. And that one happened when Kylie Jenner tweeted something mean about Snapchat. Again, I think just on a visual level, it is quite interesting what the effects are. And then what I also did is to zoom into these visual representations of market movements. And when you have like certain movements up or down. For example, 3 price informations going upwards, then you have certain people, day traders, who call that 3 white soldiers. And when you have 3 market informations going down, like 3 red candlesticks, then they call that 3 black crows. And to me, it was quite interesting that this is so close to a very late romanticist, naive ideology, this way of symbolizing movements at the market. So I decided to combine them with Magic the Gathering cards. This is this card game from the 90s, which is like a very, the first successful trading card game. And I was able to basically find all the symbols used, and they very often even have the same colors, because Magic the Gathering also has colors. So I found 3 white soldiers, I found 3 black crows, and I also found a bear and a bull, and they even have the same colors, though they are switched with them. Okay, so that was just a little bit about my visual work. Now back to the DAK, the Decentralized Autonomous Kunstverein. I wanted to start with the goal. So the DAK's mission is to promote experimental approaches to creating and curating contemporary art, exploring the potential of decentralized collective work within the context of contemporary art and technology. So what is the DAK? More buzzwords coming up. The DAK is a transnational art association inspired by the developments in blockchain technology and the unique Kunstverein tradition in the German-speaking world. The DAK is a net-based organization without a permanent space or home jurisdiction, directed and funded by its members on a voluntary basis. The DAK is a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. But the DAK is also an experiment in its beginning. It's very much in its infrastructure phase, and we are just getting started, basically. So keep that in mind. How does the DAK work? I want to give a bit of an example that is maybe more tangible. So the idea really would be to that people are just doing proposals. You do your detailed project description, put in the bios of the participants, give us a cost estimate, put in some research materials, and then you propose to do a show to the DAK, and then the DAK members decide whether they want to do the show or not. More about that later. Now I want to show you 2 more projects I'm working on or worked on that are a bit more related. So this is a podcast I'm doing. It's called kunstgespräche.com. I started that in 2014, and it is conversations with colleagues, with other artists about their work, long form. And I do them in German or English. And I'm especially telling you this because the last episode was with Ruth Catlow from Furtherfield, London, and she's also doing a art DAO thing. So I very much recommend that last episode because we dig into many topics that are between blockchain and art. And this is another project that is related to me. It's called Materialbeton. That kind of translates to concrete matter or concrete matters. And this was a project we did as a collective of 6 people over the course of 3 years. And we did a film together, a concrete installation. Everyone was in front of the camera, everyone was behind the camera, everyone was doing pre-production, post-production, concrete installation, video installation, film and video screenings, yada, yada, yada. And this is a nice image, which to me basically represents what we thought we were doing. And this is what we were actually doing. So there is like a weird disconnect maybe. It is somewhat intentional, but I think it's not fully intentional. We had like a certain idea of what like an artist collective looks like or should look like. And then there was like the reality of us being more like media artist types, really just sitting in front of a computer and doing the editing and the writing there. And we didn't have the money to buy laptops. That's just because we are part of this socio-demographic who just buys a MacBook. And then there was also this thing that we would work together for over 3 years, but we never really changed any of the ways we made decisions. So we never really looked at something like game and choice theory or group psychology or political philosophy, and only a very little bit at the history of collective work or artist collectives. So we, decided everything in one person, one vote meetings with some felt custom law, and this is really something that is influencing my thinking about the DAK now, because I wouldn't recommend it. It was extremely mentally very exhausting and very inefficient. Now I'm going to come back to the DAK. So this was the little definition slide I showed to you, and now I want to get into some of the details. So the DAK is a Kunstverein, a non-profit art association directed and funded by its members on a voluntary basis. So the Germany has a long tradition of Kunstvereine. 2 examples are the Kunstverein in Hamburg. Another one is the Kunstverein in Lübeck. I studied in Hamburg and I grew up in Lübeck. The one in Hamburg is 200 years old. The one in Lübeck, 100 years old. And so they started back then with this idea of directed and funded by its members. They are still non-profit, but they mostly operate like museums without a collection now, especially the big ones. So they apply for a lot of public funding, and it's usually a chief curator or a director who makes all the decisions about the shows. So as a member of the Kunstverein, you don't really have that much say, and there's always this weird conflict. Another thing is that the Kunstvereine that are existing today are very much connected to a local identity, which also creates a conflict in decision-making, especially when you want to do contemporary art shows that connect to this global or globalist idea of contemporary art. But we obviously want to take the good parts of the Kunstverein idea. So, and one of them is having bylaws. We have bylaws too. And later I'm going to talk about how we can enforce them without having a jurisdiction. But for now, this is just a screenshot. They are always available on Gitbook. And this is like also something where we are inspired by software development and practices in open source teams. So it will always be transparent how the bylaws change over time. So much for the Kunstverein part. Now, the DAK is transnational, net-based, and without a permanent space or home jurisdiction. The DAK is a DAO. So for us, this means we have to find solutions to basically solve certain problems we have and things we have to do as an institution. So this is a list of the components I think we need. So we need something for internal communication. We need something for internal decision making. We have to amend our bylaws on Gitbook. We need to do collective research. We need a way for proposal submission. We have to hold our general assembly. We need to communicate publicly, and then we need voting, banking, and a jurisdiction. And only the last three items are where we are going to use a blockchain thing. And we are going to use Aragon on the Ethereum blockchain, but really the rest, that's all different stuff, software that is already very common, or but likewise important to be an institution at all. Now I'm going to show you a couple of screen grabs so it becomes a bit more visual and maybe easier to understand. So this is a relatively recent screenshot of the Aragon interface. So you have voting and finance, and they call them apps. And they are really different smart contracts that communicate with each other. And like the collection of these smart contracts are basically the DAO. So for example, in the finance smart contracts is some crypto, probably Ether, but maybe also DAI, a stable cryptocurrency. And then we could do a vote to send some money to someone, and then the voting smart contract talks to the finance smart contract. But what I also want to show you is Arena, a non-blockchain project, but it's a really great fit for the DAK because first of all, it is developed by artists. And they just completed a crowdfunding campaign last year, but they've been around for a couple of years now, and it's a really great platform to do research, all kinds of research, because you can do it privately, you can do it openly, collectively, and you can really add anything. You can add images, videos, text. You can add websites, save directly from the web, drag and drop from your desktop, and there's also an app. So the first use case for us is to use it for research, but we are also using it for our proposal process. So when you want to propose a show or a project, you create an Arena channel, put all your proposal materials in that channel, and then you basically just connect it to our inbox, which is also an open channel. Yeah, I can really recommend to check out Arena, even if you're not interested in the DAK, but are interested in visual research. And then basically when doing a proposal, you would go to our Slack and announce that you want to do a show, that you're about to propose something, and then we will have a discussion, and only after those two steps we will basically do an on-chain vote at a certain time to pay out money or not. Another part that's important is to do video or audio chats as groups. This is for the General Assembly, which I'm not going to get into too much detail there, what that means, but it's basically a meeting where we decide changes in the bylaws and make important votes. And this is also something where we're not just an example for that we're not just using blockchain software, but we're also getting inspired again by how these open source teams cooperate. This is like a screen grab of a very relatively recent Ethereum core dev call, and you can find them all on YouTube. And this is also something we're planning to do to stay transparent. So people who are coming in can always see what happened in the past and how decisions were made. Okay, so that's basically these two sides of the project. And now I want to get into a little bit more into the blockchain-y side of things. And I called that the decision making as a DAO. And yeah, we're doing that with a token. We want to use a reputation token for voting. And this token is non-transferable and non-consumable. So the idea is that it's not really usable as money. And this token is earned in two ways. Either by working for the DAK or by providing monetary contributions to the DAK. So this means we don't have a one person, one vote system like in a general assembly of a traditional Kunstverein, but also not like in the Material Beton Concrete Matters project I've shown you. But this means we have to do a lot of balancing, because now we basically have like a rule system, an incentive system, and this in a way would also relate to the Curaton project, because they had many problems with incentivizing people in the right way, because it became quite gameable. So we want to avoid to becoming gameable. And yeah, one thing we want to prevent is free riding, and the other one is to prevent an oligarchy. And so this basically means we will start with something like you get one voting token for providing €1. So then it's the question basically, how much would you get for doing something like curating a show as a curator for the DAK? And this is, to us, very much part of the process and the experiment to figure out what works here and what doesn't. And I think this is something where we can move quicker than other DAOs, because ultimately it's only money and art what is on the line. Another way, and this is getting more into like the token mechanic side, is to, for example, cap the amount you're allowed to give to the DAK. So let's say you're not allowed to give more than €500 per year, and then it could, either you can't, wouldn't get any more voting tokens after that, or a more elegant solution would be that you at a certain point would get less and less tokens for the money you contribute. There's more stuff we are thinking about, like we could have annual slashing, but I think it doesn't make too much sense to get into these details at this point. So, and all, how much you get for what is again specified in our bylaws, and then the coordinating board, which is basically a group of people inside of the DAK, makes has the task to make create a vote to mint the token in spirit with the bylaws. And the idea is really that the bylaws function as such a strong focal point or shelling point that this works. But again, that's part of the experiment. And ultimately, I think it's most important that we get this part right, the more social part, that we create a core group of interested, good-willing people who are enthusiastic about the idea, and work on the DAK on a continuous basis. And I think only then we can really have like a sophisticated token mechanism and start scaling. So this is a list of the current members of the DAK, and it's basically anyone who did something with and as the DAK so far. So this also means that you can get involved too, and it's relatively simple if you are willing to use some software. So you can just join the Slack, join Arena, and then take on a little task for the DAK. And this could be to do research with us. You could propose a show. You could provide an exhibition space for one of the first DAK shows. And soon you can also get just 10 free voting tokens just for joining and posting your Ethereum MetaMask address in the Slack. So then you can be like a small stake voting member. But you could also serve on the coordinating board for the General Assembly, or help us out with our social media accounts, or make up your own DAK-related task. Yeah, and then you could be on the list next time. So, and if you click on that link or scan that QR code, you will land on the How to Join page, and there you will find an invite link to the Slack and more information on the website. Okay, thank you.